Hey, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar, Relaunch Your Career in Challenging Times. I'm Megan Frazier, the Marketing and Operations Manager here at PTLU, and I'll be manning the chat. Feel free to drop your questions in there, and we will have time to answer them at the end of the call. This session is being recorded and broadcast live on LinkedIn. The recording will be sent to all registered participants after the event. One moment. Actually, I need to make sure we are going live on LinkedIn. Here we are. Yep, we are in business there, and we will have time. Okay, you might have just heard my loop back recording there. Okay, today our hosts are Susan Rietano Davey and Kelley Biskupiak, the co-founders of Prepare to Launch You, a company dedicated to helping women successfully navigate work-life transitions. With deep experience in tech, education, and executive coaching, Susan and Kelley have guided thousands of women back into fulfilling careers after a break. Their deep understanding of hiring trends, combined with a commitment to empowering job seekers, makes them the perfect guides for today's discussion. With so much uncertainty in the job market now, it can feel unsettling to be in job search mode, but Susan and Kelley are here to ease the stress, equip you with strategies to stand out, and help you confidently take your next career step. So let's get started. Susan's going to share some slides. You are muted. So there
Good
you go.
morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. All right, we're going to start this slideshow. We are, as Megan said, we're going to leave lots of time for questions. The slides should only take us about half of the time we have allotted. So welcome today to our masterclass on returning to work in challenging times. Might be a bit of an understatement. Yeah. A little bit about us. We are both moms of four. And what Kelley likes to say, and I love this, is this program is kind of the program that we wish we had had when we were navigating our career launches 10 and 20 years ago.
Yes, we both took caregiving breaks ourselves and we successfully returned to work. So you're right, it is. It's like the gift back to the woman we were all those years ago, the women we were all those years ago. We have a combined 40 years of experience helping women navigate work and life transitions in good and bad economic times.
It's a lot easier in the good.
Yes.
But it still works in the bad. We're widely recognized experts in the field. We have LinkedIn courses. We work with colleges and universities and many major Fortune 500 companies as well. And with our help, and we're well into the thousands now of students, audience members, et cetera, have landed jobs, not just taken any job, but landed good, fulfilling careers with our help.
Yes, and today we're here to help you. All right, so here is what we're going to cover today. So relaunching a career is always a challenge, right? Especially, given your circumstances, given your confidence that takes a hit. And some conditions make it more so. So there are three things to help you in this particular market. So number one is knowing and reframing the facts. So you want to expand on that?
We know that the job numbers are low, whether we magically change them or not. We know that's the reality. We also know that our unemployment rate is right under 96, or employment rate is right under 96%. If you just consider that number, that 95.9% of people are employed. The vast majority of people are finding jobs.
Yeah, so hear that, right? Because we really want to highlight to you, the vast majority of people are employed. So when we hear this and panic sets in and all sorts of worry sets in, if we lean into that, it can really be ultimately what runs you. So if you really lean into there are a lot of people working and you can be one of those.
And not all of them are working perhaps in the ideal situation.
Right.
And sometimes you'll have to kind of reframe your expectations. But what's really key is that you're very clear on what you're going after and what you bring to the market, which leads to the second column,
which is you must have an exceptional brand and clarity. That's very important. You got to be clear.
When we're in abundance, I mean, we saw this because our program's been around for what, 7, 8 years?
8 years.
I think it was 21. Like our students were landing jobs in the first week. We hadn't even started like writing resumes and people were landing jobs. Back in 21, as we were coming out of the pandemic employment crisis, basically, if you had a pulse, you could get a job. So we knew we were still teaching the same thing. It had much less import because employers really needed bodies in seats. That's not where we are today.
Mhm.
But when you go into any job market, if you can go into it with a very clear idea of your brand, which is what do you bring, what skills and assets do you bring to the organization, and then what opportunities and particulars do they need to offer you? It's a two-way street. Then you're much better at cutting through all the noise. So you could stay really busy on a job search for years and years if you're kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. We are going to help you become laser clear on that. And in a market like this, it's that much more important.
Yes. And I want you to just implant this in your mind. Your job in the job seeking process is to teach people who you are, but you have to start with the clarity of yourself and the direction that you're going in first. So remember that you have to teach people who you are in this job seeking process, and it begins with you. So the next one is multiple options and creative options. So
actually, I was just with a client this morning, a private client who works for one of the big tech three, who's pivoting because her department's been moved over to AI actually. And she's very set on getting another job in one of the other two big tech companies on a permanent, regular basis, blah, blah, blah. And I had to have the conversation with her today about just considering things that are different, considering maybe a long-term project. Not her ideal situation, but it's a lot easier to get into an organization as a contractor than it is as a regular full-time employee when we're seeing hiring freezes or very long ramps onto employment and she needs money right away. So it's either maybe taking a lesser role in the organization where you really want. In her case, that's what I'm proposing to her. Or maybe going to a lesser organization. Maybe you really want to work at that blue chip company, but you're going to take a job that's in something smaller to develop your skills, maybe to advance yourself a little bit, to improve your resume. Just resetting those expectations and allowing yourself to look at more than I just want this.
Right.
Because we're playing the long game here. And the long game, it might just be 2 years. It might just be a few years before we kind of get back into a robust job market. But in the meantime, you're better off maybe not changing your parameters, just expanding them. You're not going to take something that is an insult to you or is not going to develop you. There's still that selfish need to serve your own needs, your own developmental needs, but maybe just opening that aperture a little wider.
Yes. Okay. So this is your challenging times toolkit. And these 3 areas in particular are where you need to focus. So number 1 is your mind, right? Your mindset. So go ahead and talk.
Good managers are always looking for great talent. I can tell you this from when I was one, when I worked in tech, when I worked with companies supporting their hiring objectives. If a great candidate comes across my desk, I may not be able to hire them right away, but I'm going to find a way to bring them into the organization, maybe using one of those creative strategies we talked about just in that last slide. But remember that if you can create that sense of being really great talent, believing that, then you're going to land, and you're going to land the right thing, even in a bad economy, even in a sluggish labor market.
And even with a gap, you know, and I think that's where that mind shift really for the women who tend to be in our audience need to focus. It's you have to believe in the value of the work that you are bringing. You have to believe in the value of the work that you've done during those gap years. You are also going to be teaching people about that. And so but it all starts with you believing it yourself.
Because if you don't believe it,
yes,
I will know in a second, and I'm never going to believe it if you don't believe it.
Yeah, the energy comes.
It's not just the words.
Exactly, that energy comes through, that self-doubt comes through, and the reality is, and we always say this to our students that come through our courses, that you going out into the workplace and educating people about the work that you've done and how it actually has value and workplace currency to a hiring manager. You going out and doing that is making the path easier for every woman that's behind you. So when you're doing this, sometimes it's easier to, you know, not make the focus yourself, but make it more like I am doing this for
and blazing a trail.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. All right. And the next one is to focus on is your brand. So
it's never been a word we
don't love brand.
Really, we're really fond of. But it captures what we're talking about. So your brand is what you are, who you are, what you bring into the workplace, and what differentiates you from everybody else out there. And you have to be able to tell that in a memorable story, because when you do land that interview, you may be one of 25 interviews with that one interviewer that one day. They need to remember you. So we'll be talking about how to make your story memorable.
Exactly. And you have to have a plan.
Mhm.
You have to have a plan. You cannot go out there and the plan has to be good. And this is why I always get excited when women show up to our webinars that we put out there. Here is the deal. Susan and I have made this our lane. We know this lane and we know it really well. We know career returners and we know career pivoters. We know what needs to happen in order for you to be successful. We have a track record of really successful alumni that have come through our programs. And you yourself need to have a plan, but a plan that really works. And so that's why I'm so happy you're all here today.
Mhm.
We're happy
And
that
you'll get some, this is not going to be too high level. We're going to give you some specific actionable things that you can work on. But we'll tell you this right now, your plan is not applying online. None of you will ever get a job by applying online. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So we're going to unpack each one of these tools, starting with the mindset.
Right.
So the most important thing is to call out the negative voices. I said on that prior slide, if you don't believe in yourself, I will know.
Mhm.
If you could tell me you're flying to the moon, and if you have a lot of confidence, I'm going to buy it.
Mhm.
You could tell me that you're, excited about this job and you show it with no real authenticity, and I'm not going to buy it.
Right, right. And so, the negative voices always default into one of these categories: the doubt, the fear, the shame, the defeatism. If you look at those quotes, maybe you're saying a version of that to yourself. Maybe there are people around you that are saying that to you. And so we always like to spend a little minute on the fact that you can either combat those negative voices or you can compile them. And when you are in the job seeking process, it's hard to do it alone. And so you will often lean on people that are around you, and you have to make sure those people are the right people. You have to be fiercely loyal to yourself and not listen to the voices that are going to tell you all the reasons why this is impossible. We all do this. We're all human, and we all do this, where we sit and there's something that's hard and difficult, and I can relate to you that this is challenging. But if we're spending our time and energy there, what the neuroscience is telling us is that you are building those narrow pathways for negativity. And as Susan said before, she's going to be able to read that as the hiring manager. So don't do that, because the neuroscience could be built into your favor. And that is by combating this. It's really looking at, how can I kill the beast instead of feed it? So it's seeking those positive messages. It's coming to a webinar like this today that is proactive, that is really led by experts that understand your situation and understand the strategies that are going to get you to have some success.
It might also mean setting boundaries with people who are those negative voices and just spending less time with them, so they don't have access to you. The friend who maybe feels threatened by you going back to work when she's not and is feeding that beast. The family member who, believes they're a real expert on the workplace and they're telling you all the reasons no one ever gets hired in this market.
If you're a caregiver, it could be the people that you've been, taking care of, and all of a sudden the apple cart is shifting and they don't like that shift. Everyone will be okay, because the lie that we tell ourselves is that if I'm doing for everyone else, I'm doing what's right. And the reality is, when you do that, you're giving an exhausted, depleted version of yourself. And it takes a lot of energy to get through the job seeking process. It takes a lot to do this. This is not easy, but I can promise you, you've done harder things in your life than land a job. I promise you that you have. And you just have to make sure you're setting really good boundaries too. Okay. Enough about the mindset. Let's get into the meat.
All right, your brand.
Yes.
So we talk about telling your story. You have opportunities to tell your story when you are networking, when you meet someone on the sidelines or at a summer barbecue, when you're in an interview, when you're negotiating your final offer. All these opportunities to tell your story, and you need to connect the dots. So if I'm looking at, maybe I have your resume, maybe I have your LinkedIn, and I see that you have a career break, right? Or I see that, gee, she worked at Google And then the last place you worked was as the treasurer of the school PTO. Obviously, a shift happened there. Don't let me tell that story. You tell that story. You tell me that story. You connect those dots. You explain to me how that work as a treasurer of the PTO increased, improved, expanded your skill set from when you were working in the FP&C department or division at Google or wherever you worked before. The STAR method, which you've probably all seen, is just talk about the situation, the tasks at hand, the accomplishments, and the results. It's just a nice template for setting up your story. Tell me what the situation was. What tasks did you have? How did you come out as the hero? What did you accomplish? And then at the end of the day, what was the result at the end of that endeavor? Take credit. Can't tell you how many times when we're doing mock interviews as a course or when I'm working with a client to do an interview, I hear the story about we did this, we did that. I am not interviewing your team. I'm interviewing you.
Right.
And when I interview men, they never default to the we and the our. They're always the I and the my.
Right.
Take a page out of the book. Remember, I am interviewing you. If you were an integral part of a team and your team results were X, for the purposes of my interview, they were your results. It was your accomplishment.
Right.
Okay.
And then you want to really think about how you're speaking to your audience. So
yeah,
that story is a big piece.
Yes, it's also knowing who your audience is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the world of LinkedIn, you know, every manager, every recruiter that you interact with is going to look at your resume and your LinkedIn. They absolutely have to be in sync. They're a slightly different modality. I like LinkedIn better because it's got a lot more flexibility. But if I see that you're marketing yourself as a product manager on your resume, but then over in LinkedIn, you're pitching customer success, I will not interview. You will not advance at my company because I need to know exactly who you are, not who you think you are on day A or day B, which requires you to know at the very outset, before you do anything related to creating these tactics, who am I talking to?
Right.
Who is my audience? And what do they need to hear from me?
And this might be a place that you need to spend some time exploring and assessing, because really understanding who your audience is, what audience am I speaking to? What line of work am I speaking to? Some of the job titles may have changed in those gap years, and you want to educate yourself.
There may be new jobs that didn't exist.
That never existed, exactly.
Your last full-time job.
So giving yourself the grace to do a bit of exploring and assessing so you can be really, really clear about that audience is very important.
We have a number of videos just on that.
Yeah,
So
on
we
our
spent
YouTube
3
channel.
weeks on it in our program.
Yeah.
But kind of a high level, we do have a couple of videos on that on our YouTube channel. If you are not following our YouTube channel, you should.
Yeah.
We have new content out every Monday. It's all the questions that career relaunchers ask, and we have, I think, 2 years of content.
I mean, there's just a lot out there.
A lot of
where we began those very early videos. But what you want to consider during that time is you want to consider the field, the function, the organization. These are some questions that you might be asking yourself. And then you want to connect the story to the audience. What do they need? What do they want to hear from you? And so we do that by some researching of
from exploring and assessing.
Yeah, exactly.
So the last piece is your platform. So the brand is your story. Then you consider how you're going to tell it to connect to that audience. And then you look at the different places you're going to tell it. So in your resume, as we mentioned, on your LinkedIn profile, if you have other social media outlets, perhaps if you have an X account, that would be a good place to build some brand. Not so much on Instagram and TikTok. We kind of keep those separate from your job search, but you still want to make sure that whatever presence you're putting out there is clean and professional enough that when it's checked, it's not going to impede your potential employment. And then how are you going to tell that story when you're talking to people in a quote unquote elevator pitch, in an interview question? How are you going to tie that story to asking for more money when you're negotiating your final offer? So lots of different ways to bring that story. In our programs, we always start with the print version first. We get pen to paper, keyboard to screen, and then we move from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to do that? This template right here is going to help you. So if you are going to screenshot anything from today, it would be this slide right here, because this is tried and true. It's something that we tell all of our students to follow when they are telling their career break stories. So this is a great template for you to work off of when you're building your story, right?
Think about these 3 steps. So for those of you who took a career break, it could have been a year, it could have been 21 years. I loved my work. I was really good at it. It was a big sacrifice to leave, but given my options at the time, it was the right decision. I'm glad I've made it. I am not spending a lot of time telling you I had one baby and then I had a miscarriage and then I had twins and then one was neurodiverse and I had to stay back, blah, 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 blah. All of these things are landmines.
Right.
You do not owe that interviewer anything more than I decided to take some time off with my family. It was a very difficult decision. It was a sacrifice, but I'm glad I made it.
I just want to say something about this because this is something that we have seen really trip up our students and clients that we work with, because we feel like we have to tell that whole story. We feel like we have to explain it all so that you understand. I was really good at the work that I did back in the day, but I had these things that derailed me. You don't. People earn the right to hear that deeper story. Those people are your allies in life. Those people are your tribe in your, your team. They are not this recruiter that you're sitting with that could be 20 something years old. They're not the hiring manager. They're not anybody along that continuum. It's that the depth of that is reserved for those people that can hold you when life gets hard and difficult. All you have to do is follow exactly what Susan just said.
The second piece is during that time, again, whether it was 1 year or 21 years, I tapped into and perfected my professional skills and experience or expertise through other kinds of work. For example, leadership in my community, doing some professional advocacy work, doing occasional pro bono assignments. And during that time, again, it could be a very long time, I learned new skills as well. So now I'm kind of connecting. Yes, I was a project manager at IBM. But during this time on my break, when I was advocating for better resources for our seniors or leading a school PTO to have its banner year, whatever I was doing, I developed new skills. And then the third piece pulls it all together.
I just want to say something about that second piece, because a place where people get tripped up here is that you'll say one of two things. Either I did nothing during my break because I was so busy taking care of the kids, so I really didn't do anything. I wasn't leading the community in this. I wasn't doing this. You did something. Talk to the people around you and mine for what it is that's valuable. Sometimes you won't even give yourself the permission to own what you really did during those opt-out years. And so this is a great time to have conversations with people around you so they can give you some words, they can give you some feedback on things that you did. You may have forgotten, oh my gosh, I led this or I did that.
We also have one video, I think, just on translating unpaid experience into something more.
Yeah, I'll pop that in the chat. I know.
That's one thing you'll say, I really didn't do anything. Or you'll say, it was just so small. It was one day. It was, it was a small little thing. I didn't get paid for that. Go ahead and say
work is work, whether it's paid or unpaid. So as a hiring manager, I'm not measuring how much you made in each job. I'm looking at what skills you either learned or perfected and what outcomes you had.
Okay. So then that ties it all up too.
The last piece of it is I am ready and eager to bring both my professional background and my more recent advocacy or community leadership, whatever it is that you've done, experiences back together in the workplace. And I'm excited to meet today to learn if we're a good fit for each other. Boom, boom, boom. It's not a long conversation. You have to own it. If you don't explain it to me right up front, I already know the story that I'm making it up. And I'm telling you right now, it's not favorable to your candidacy. It never is.
Yeah. So here is where you really want to spend your time and do your work. All right. So number 3 is your plan. So this is very important also, as we said earlier.
Around 1.
So you want to have a strategy. So let's talk through what that strategy looks like based on what we coach and guide people to do.
So if you look at the American population, the professional American population, fewer than 80% of employed people got their job just by applying on, I'm sorry, fewer than 20% got their job by applying online. So if you take out computer programmers and software developers whose skills are very easily quantifiable by an on and off switch in an algorithm, take them out, maybe 18%, maybe 15%. Now, consider how your resume is going to stack up against somebody who has very conventional experience and no gap and doesn't have anything to explain. You're never going to get through. Most fully qualified people with no gaps, no job hops, no pivots, they don't get through. How on earth is someone like you going to get through? You're not. Mm-hmm. So don't spend your time there. You can use job boards as a great research tool to understand who's hiring, to understand what department they're hiring in. But you have to network to get in. You have to network with other human beings, either current friends and colleagues or former coworkers and clients. And you want to tap into what we call the hidden job market. And that is that about half of jobs are never posted before they're filled. Right. Or they are posted after I already know I'm going to hire her because I networked with her, but I have to put the job posting out there anyway. Right. So networking, not only to try to get into places where you know there's a job open for you, but networking for future opportunity, networking for connections that can help you find out a job. You know, someone's leaving tomorrow. They're moving to India. Mm-hmm. Job is opening up, right? There's a long lag time between that happening and a job being posted, and you want to insert yourself into that process.
And really, like when we talked earlier about being creative about this, because I mean, our students have landed jobs because of their children, their adult children. They've landed jobs because of their hairdresser, therapist. They've landed jobs. We had someone
on the sidelines,
had a former employee that she hired a bazillion
when he was
22 years old. He hired her back because he knew how great she was.
And Janice had been out for, was it 26
like
years?
22 years.
A long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So keep that in your mind. I am looking at everyone as a potential opportunity and listening and just looking for that window where you can use that story.
Most people want to help you.
Absolutely.
It'll be a rare person who gets through the next 10 years, even the people who will be retiring in 10 years, having never navigated a job search. Most people will not ever emerge having never navigated even some type of layoff or redistribution. So most people have been in your shoes and most people will help you. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then you want to consider and you want to pitch options. So talk about that.
So we talked a little bit about that in the first slide, right? Being a little bit more flexible with what you will accept. This does not mean that I used to be an HR director and now I'm going to take a job as an entry-level recruiter at a staffing agency. That's not what we're talking about. But what we're talking about is maybe I really want to go back in HR in a leadership role in a big company, but I can't quite get there yet. So I'm going to get in at a mid-level and work my way up. Or I want that leadership role because to me, the leadership is more important than actually the function. Maybe I go into a smaller company because they're hiring, right, and build some credibility there and then switch over later. Maybe finding out that you actually love working, right, at a smaller, more nimble company. Maybe it's contingent or temporary work. If you do not need benefits, contingent and temporary work is the easiest way to get in a bad market. So even companies that have hiring freezes, and many of them do, still are filling, they're still getting the work done, and the work still needs to be done. It's just not being done by a regular employee. It's often being done by a contractor. Totally different budget center. They are not affected by hiring freezes. And sometimes it costs just as much money because typically the hourly rates are pretty good. So allowing yourself to be open to that. So maybe in a networking call, just throwing it out there, ideally I'm looking to find a regular full-time home. My goal is to be part of a team and contribute in the long term, but I would be open to having conversations about project work, keeping that door open. Contingent temporary work is a little more transactional. Consulting or project work is a little bit more strategic, but they're kind of all the same thing. Another thing to consider is a returnship. You've probably heard of companies like Relaunch and the Mom Project that offer returnship programs. They are extremely competitive. Right. Typically, and sadly, the candidates that win those few seats in those programs have very short gaps and very limited hit to their skill set.
Well,
Perhaps
and
their skills
especially
aren't
in the
dated at all.
challenging market because there's more of those people out there.
But that doesn't mean that you couldn't create your own. So through your networking, you might be talking to a company and you might know, I'm not quite ready for this. There's a lot that's changed. Maybe you propose it. Why don't we consider bringing me in on not for 90 days, kind of in an internship capacity where I'm being paid for my time and I'm doing some important work, but half of that time is learning. And then at the end of the 90 days, if we feel like we're a good fit for each other, then we can talk about me coming into that permanent role. So I'm not saying lead with these things, but consider them and pitch them when appropriate.
Okay. So here, these next couple of slides, we put these in here because we just
Little deeper dive.
Yeah, we feel that they're just really valuable for you. So your resume and LinkedIn profile are important assets. They showcase your positive mindset. They convey your brand and they open doors to execute your plan. So here are our essential resume and LinkedIn ground rules.
So you've already heard me say that they have to be consistent. They don't have to be identical because they're different platforms, but they need to be consistent. They need to be pitching you in the same role or roles, and they need to show the same experience. So whether it's LinkedIn or resume, you're going to present those years that you've not been working in the same format that you represent your working years. So reverse chronology.
Mm-hmm.
We have tons of videos out here about that.
Yes.
We do a very deep dive and we hold your hand in our course, but there are things on our YouTube channel that can take you through it in a little more detail than we have today. But generally speaking, you're going to present whether it was a community leadership role, whether it was a patient advocacy role, whether it was pro bono work, or let's say
maybe it was
every year that
family.
maybe you were working for your spouse's business, but you weren't being paid, whatever it is, you're going to present it. Doesn't have to take up a lot of space because it's essential that whatever that more, I'm going to say more important because it's not more important, but that more, the experience that has more cachet, those years you were working as a project manager at Google, they need to be on the first page. So I need to see it pretty quickly, right? But I can't just see that your last job was in 2006. That will not work. You will never get in the door. You've got to account for that time. When you're framing this work that you've done, that's been that unconventional work, whether it's pro bono or volunteer or what gig, you want to present it in the same way. You're going to talk about what you did, the actions you took. You're going to create some context. Whether it's the scale of the project, how many volunteers you coordinated. Don't call them volunteers. Don't call yourself a volunteer. Just talk about what you did. We don't need to call out that it was unpaid. Let me guess at that. Let me not even think about that when I'm reading it. It shouldn't be front and center. And talk about accomplishments and measure results. You'll see on our YouTube channel some ways of talking about volunteer work in language that appeals to the for-profit world. Right. And I think that can kind of help you find how you might say it.
Yeah.
You have the option on LinkedIn to call out your break. I'm not a big fan. I would rather, if you're spending the time to really talk about what you've done during those career pause years on your resume, put it the same way on your LinkedIn. No need. I'm going to know. I'm going to read it and realize, oh, okay, so she was a corporate lawyer and then she was doing pro bono work for the local land trust. I'm going to know that you took a career break. So why call it out? Let me read more about what you did. Because the minute someone sees career break, they just gloss over it. Sometimes those experiences have even more value for the kinds of job that you're looking for now.
Right.
And yeah, we've got to make sure that that most relevant experience, that paid experience is, we call it above the fold, but we just mean on that first page.
Yeah, and we have, as Susan said, we have tons of videos about this. We even have a video that is specifically about, because you'll feel like your resume is 3 pages, 4 pages long.
Yeah.
We have a video that teaches you little hacks that you can use
to make it shorter.
Clean it up and make it shorter, because it really should not be any longer than 2 pages. All right, so your goal is always to get in front of someone. Really park that in your head. We see this all the time. People will come to us and they've been in the job seeking process and they're like, oh my gosh, I made it one time past to the, past the recruiter, or I applied, and I'm hearing nothing, and they feel completely defeated. Your best like avenue here is to get in front of someone. So we said that earlier, we're saying it again. We want you to really park that in your head. 90% of your time should be spent doing that, not applying online, not applying through websites, not, you know, doing that kind of work. It feels like you're getting something done. You might feel, but you're not getting something done. It doesn't mean that you don't have to put your, you know, as a,
well, sometimes even if you are applying via a personal connection, you
Right.
still have to put your resume on their platform,
right.
but you never want to start there.
Right. So we just thought it would be important to give you a little taste of this. So here are our essential interview and networking ground rules. Right. Yeah.
You should introduce the fact that you took a career break immediately.
Yeah.
And this is contrary to what you might be thinking and contrary to maybe what you've heard elsewhere. But here's the deal. If I'm interviewing you and I don't ask you about the years that you weren't working as a project manager at Google and you were doing something different, I either A, haven't read your resume yet, which is very common, or B, I've already written you off and I just have to interview you because you're a box I need to check.
Exactly.
Or C, I don't know it yet. And we're going to have this nice conversation talking all about your work at Google. And then when you're gone and I bring your resume to the table and say, I really liked this woman, Kay. And Kelley says, well, she hasn't worked in 6 years. Then you're gone, right? Because I'm going to create that story myself. So you introduce it. One of the first things out of your mouth in an interview when they say, tell me about yourself, or on a networking call. Well, as you can probably see, I took a brief caregiving break. And then that's when you do those 3 things. I was very successful in my career. I was fast tracking. But then I had a family and I realized I could not do both as well as I like to do it. I am not a half in person. I am all in. So I chose to make the sacrifice to be all in with my family for 8 years. And it was a difficult decision to make, but at the time, I'm glad I made it. During those 8 years, you'll also see from my resume that I was doing pro bono work for legal aid, if you're a lawyer, or I was doing treasury work for 2 nonprofits. And during that time, I used those opportunities to learn some new platforms. For example, I set up the Stripe account for our business, or I did, I learned, I forget the new legal, there's like a whole new legal platform. I'm not a lawyer. I learned that, or I learned how to do CRM because we were kind of managing our relationships that way. Whatever it is, whatever skill set is important to that audience that you're talking to, tell me about that. And then that third point. So my kids are all in school now. I have great after school care, and I am so excited to get back into work that pays me again. I'm looking forward to not only start where I left off, but to advance. And I'm excited to be here to talk to you to learn how that might work out for us. Done. Okay. So introduce it. Don't wait.
And 2 things happen when you do that. You show confidence and you will feel more confidence in the rest of the conversation because you have just spoken about the elephant in the room, and that is memorable. Okay.
And if it comes back, if you're getting lots of questions about it, just redirect, because 95% of the interview should be talking about your qualifications.
Exactly.
Not your kids, not your elderly parents. Those are not even really, they're not part of the conversation. They are a very minor drop. And then we move on. Okay. These are the kinds of things that, like in our program, you are writing it, you are reading it, you are practicing it, you are doing it in small groups, you're doing it on the screen alone, blah, 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 blah. If you are doing this on your own, then make sure that you do some type of scripting and practicing.
Absolutely.
Whether it's recording yourself, doing it with a friend, as many modalities as possible, because you will be better at it once you practice it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's about it. But we did want to just circle back to reminding you of these 3 things, keeping that mindset that good talent is always being hired. People are always looking for good talent.
Right.
You need to believe that you're good talent.
Yes. Your brand, you must know who you are, what you offer, and what you want, and what differentiates you from others. And you must be able to convey that in a clear and memorable story. And that was that template that we walked those 3 things.
And I want to add one thing in the memorable story. So if you use my example earlier of the recruiter that had 25 people to interview in that one day, and that is not unusual. Sometimes it's more. That's a lot of people to have, say, a 20-minute screen interview with. They may really like you. Let's say you were interview number 6. There are 19 more after you. If there isn't something you've said in that interview to make them remember you, you're screwed. because after I need to remember who you are. I tell a story in our course where I interviewed two people, and one of them, the day after I interviewed her, I forgot her name. I forgot who she was. But the other guy, 3 months later, I still remembered him because he gave me something to remember.
And they both had worked on the same project.
Doing the same thing.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and then of course, having a plan, knowing exactly how you're going to go at it, which is through networking, who you're going to tap into for your network, and what you're going to say, and those different modalities for saying it. All right. So I think that's all we've got. Go to the next one.
Great.
We did want to give you a couple of dates.
Oh, yeah.
So we have an info session coming up. So we do a free webinar always in anticipation of the semester of our course. Our program runs 10 weeks. It's offered in a limited cohort of 10 to 12 women. We have multiple cohorts going on at a time, and we run them fall, winter, and spring. Our fall session comes up around the third week of September. It begins then. You can join us on August 28th or September 5th, both at noon Eastern time, for a 1-hour session where we will have students talk about the program. We will take you through everything about it, and then we'll open up the floor for questions like we're just about to do now.
Yeah.
All right. So mark those dates. We'd love to have you come if you are interested. If not, as we mentioned, we have a robust YouTube channel with lots of live videos or recorded videos, but good instruction and shorter tidbits. If you're more of an audio person, we also have those same videos in audio format on Spotify. Okay.
Great.
All right.
Super.
Okay, well, let us start our Q&A time. Harini asked a question earlier live today, is how to tailor a resume and cover letter for a job description. Also, how to craft a networking email request. Do we have any templates we can share for that?
There's a lot of, so on our YouTube video, there are some freebies that will come up. So, but here's the general answer. Unlike the advice that's out there, which is to pack your cover letter and your resume with keywords pulled from job descriptions, we advise that you don't do that, because we don't advise you to apply that way. So if you are writing your cover letter and your resume for a human, it's going to be very different than if you're writing it for an algorithm. And we don't recommend that you write for the algorithm because you'll never get through. So this is a little bit freeing because it allows you to write the way you would normally write. I'm a writer, so I can tell an AI, a chat GPT cover letter from a non-chat GPT in a New York second. I mean,
I think a lot of
instantly.
people that aren't writers can tell.
Yeah. But I mean, it's getting better.
Mhm.
I think it's fine to use it to help polish something up or make something shorter. And maybe if you really struggle with either writing, or if you have a language barrier, maybe you're not a native English speaker, then maybe use it as a foundation. But the most important thing is to read the job description, get a good feel for what they're looking for, and connect those dots. So talk about on your cover letter, do not repeat what I'm going to read on your resume. That's a waste of my time. Tell me you're excited, and tell me why you're a good fit for the job, and give me a few bullets, because it's easier to read bullets than a lot of long narrative that are different, not different, that expand something on your resume. So you may say on your resume that you worked on the team that automated the claims procedure for an insurance company, right? That might be what you talk about. Maybe in the cover letter, you might dive a little deeper and talk about the tools that you use.
Right.
And again, if it's relative to that job. So the cover letter should enhance the resume, not repeat it. It should be short, and you should always do a cover letter because, and make sure it sounds like it's written by a human, because it should be written by a human. Because if you take the time to write a cover letter, you're putting yourself ahead of all the people who don't. Because typically cover letters are optional. Most people won't do them because they're trying to do as many applications as possible, because they're following the advice that it's a numbers game.
Right.
Like anything, it is a bit of a numbers game. If you only have one interview, you've got really slim chances. If you have 10 interviews scheduled, you've got a better chance of landing a job. But 1,000 in ATS applications, that's not worth 2 good networking calls. That's just the math of it. If you're applying for a job and there is no field for a cover letter, we still recommend that you write one. Write it and then save it in the PDF of your resume. So that's the first page of your resume. Again, showing that you're taking a little extra time. But remember, that little extra time that you're taking is still going through an algorithm, and the chances of you getting through are still so low that we don't recommend it. So I think, was it Hamini was her name? Harini? I
Harini.
hope that answers your question, Harini.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, we actually have a lot of questions today because
Okay.
on our registration form, there was a field that some people filled out, and actually there was so much interest that we got a lot. So we will take as many questions as we have time in our next 15, 20 minutes. But I will get to Rita's question live in the chat. I'm really lacking in defining what I want to do. I can't sell myself during interviews because it's obvious that I'm not passionate about my career. Does your program offer finding yourself type answers?
Absolutely.
We spend the first 3 weeks,
Yeah.
probably 3 weeks exclusively doing that.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because some people come into our program, some people will say, I don't want to do the programs. I already know what I want to do.
Yeah.
But then they realize that it doesn't matter because, so they think they're going to do autopilot for the first few weeks and just kind of like not pay attention. But what often they'll realize is this is an opportunity to either vet what they think they want to do or reconsider it. Very often, I would say at least half of the time, and probably more, people come and say, I know exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then after they do all the assessments, self-assessments and third-party assessments and reflection, they realize that isn't really what I want to do.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. And good for you, Rita, for even figuring that out.
Right. And I actually think that a lot of the assessment and the valuable piece of the assessment comes through having conversations that are with people who are out there doing work in the world that speaks to you in some way, so you can educate yourself and then make a decision. Because I mean, if you think about the span of the way that the workplace has changed and what people are doing and the jobs that never existed, there might be something in there that you think, oh yeah, that's for me. Or you may have gone into something years ago because your parents said to you, this
You'll
is a
always have a
secure
job if you're an engineer.
this is the route you should go.
Yeah.
Or, you know what, you're really good with kids. You should be a teacher. That's what you should do. Or, you know, you're really good with numbers, so you should become an accountant, whatever it was. And then you say to yourself, oh my gosh, this is absolutely not me. I missed me. And that's what we do in the beginning part of our course. We really give you time to really think about who are you, what values do you have, and what strengths do you bring to the table. And then, okay, let's go out there and talk to people and get educated about what is out there in the workplace for me that might be a matchup.
We also look a lot at your priorities because they may have shifted.
Yep.
And your priority may not be job title. It may not be money. It may be other things, and really understanding that, so that when you're going out there, you're not just shopping yourself, but you're shopping for you.
Yes.
Really important kind of a mindset shift for many people.
And there's all sorts of ways that we come back into the workforce after when we're relaunching. You may have a short term, I have a financial imperative, I have to make money. And that might be where you start, but then you have a really good definition of, but this is what I know I really want to be doing. So you're building a plan that's working towards that work that you really want to be doing in the world. Okay, I hope that answered.
Yeah, thank you. Next, let's get to Kay's question. What is your guidance regarding non-responsive email network introductions to senior execs? Should I keep following up on the intro email? I feel like it can become an irritation.
You're right. So you don't just, I mean, it's like beating a dead horse. You have to understand that when you're networking. Well, it's not that clear. Let me just start with the general answer and then I'll dial down. You have to go into networking just with the basic understanding that not everybody will get back to you.
Right.
Some people are just too busy. Some people just don't check their email, and just continuing to message people. My best advice would be to message them in different ways. So if you've emailed somebody and you have a strong introduction, it's not just random, then try LinkedIn the next time. I wouldn't do a total of more than 3 reaches over, say, 60 days. Just let it go. When it becomes almost an obsession, like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy isn't getting back to me. That's a reminder that you just don't have enough feelers out there. Exactly. We know that. Yeah. When we were building our business and we were partnering with other organizations and trying to get webinars on other platforms and get published, We didn't have a lot.
So-and-so hasn't gotten back.
And
to
we were
us.
like dialed in because I can't believe they've gotten back to us.
Right.
We've tried like 4 different times. Now we have spread it so wide. We don't, when we hear back from someone, we
You're like,
forget.
"Oh."
Did we? I don't know. We
Every
didn't look
every
to
so,
them.
every so often we'll say,
I
oh
forgot
my
about
gosh, we didn't, yeah, I like, let me go back and
So
look.
you need to be in that position where you
Yeah.
have so many things that you're reaching out to
Yes.
that a few not getting back to you doesn't matter, because there will always be a few that do
Yes.
get back to you.
And spending more time networking with real human beings that maybe aren't on that level, but everybody's got tentacles somewhere, and that
Mhm.
could be, your next connection that you have. And
Senior
truly, it
execs
could be
aren't,
anywhere
and
that
they're
you
not the
want.
best way. It's
Yeah.
just probably not the best way to start. Senior execs are pretty far away from the hiring decision. Better a functional manager, someone working on a team that can push you up than to try to get the attention. And often the senior, so I'll give you an example. I have one of my old colleagues is now the CEO of a probably Fortune 25 tech company. I reached out to him because I've got something that he can help me with. I haven't talked to him in probably 30 years, but we were pretty close way back when. He got back to me within 5 hours. And oh my God, so great to hear from you. But from that point on, I was working with his executive assistant. He gave me the courtesy, because he knew me and respected me, to at least say, you're going to be working with Danielle. Most people would not have had that access to him, right? Because he barely reads his email. Danielle reads, but Danielle said to him, this one looks personal. You should reply to this.
Mhm.
So remember, the higher up you go, the further they are away from the decision that will ultimately impact you, but also they're probably not even checking their own email.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
So
Okay.
just taking that, just thinking about, where am I going to be spending my energy? Do you want to spend your energy writing yet another email to this person who's not getting back to you, or networking for the next really great opportunity?
Okay, I'd also say that the direct email to someone you don't know well is not the best strategy. LinkedIn is a much better way to reach out to people. The other thing I'll say is you have to be very careful of what you're saying. And we have videos on YouTube/Spotify about executing a strong networking call. In fact, I think it's our most popular video ever. So you may want to look at that. It gives you some very specific guidelines for how to approach a networking call.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just want to say one other thing, because this is something that we teach in our course. Especially when it comes to networking, you should be thinking about who are all of the connectors in your life, those people that just have tentacles everywhere. Every one of us know 1, 2, 5 of them. So those are people you want to be having a conversation with, because they will help you brainstorm for, oh, you know what? I know so-and-so, or I can put you in touch with so-and-so. So the connectors are who you're looking for to onboard. We actually call it your team, your job seeking team. You want to onboard connectors onto your team and be having conversations with those people, because they have that reach. Okay.
The other thing that's key here is that you should not be networking unless you've checked all of those other boxes, unless you are very clear on your brand, on who you are, what you bring, what you want to do, where you fit. Can you fit where you want to fit?
Yes.
Like, you've got to do all that, because you don't get a second chance on a networking call.
Yes.
So you have to have all of that foundational work done. You have to have a really good resume, because they're going to ask for it. You have to have a really good LinkedIn, because they're going to read it. So the networking comes after all of that work has been done well. And the problem that we see time after time with the students who end up in our course is that they've done those things, but they haven't done them well. Not for lack of effort, they just didn't have the knowledge or the expertise. And those network potential connections they're gone. You're not getting another chance to reach out to a senior exec to say, oh, guess what? Now I really know what I want to do. And it says it on my resume and it shows it on my LinkedIn. You don't get that. So doing that foundational work is essential. Okay.
Good.
Thanks.
Yeah, we call that explore and assess. That's Kelley and Susan language for that like long process of really pinpointing what you want to do.
Right.
Okay, next I'm going to ask a question that was submitted to us before the event. Jen says, I'm going from freelancing for 10 plus years to working for someone else again. Can you offer any advice?
Yes. I mean, if she's asking for advice on how to pitch that, I'm assuming.
Yes, how to
It's
pitch
a really
that.
easy pitch. We have a lot of students who do that. A lot of women and caregivers will go freelance because that gives them full control over their schedule. And it may be that during that 10 years of freelance that Jen might have had a couple of years that she didn't work at all, and maybe a few years where she worked a lot, and maybe the rest of them were kind of like part-time. That is not something that Jen or anyone needs to necessarily call out. You just want to lump it all together. Over the 10 years, this is what I did. The most of the time when people want it, when especially women in our group want to pivot into permanent, is because they have more time now. They want to make more money. They might need benefits, but you can't really go in and say, gee, I have more time now because I wasn't really working full time and I need benefits and I want more money, because that's not going to pitch it. So the best way to say it is that I've loved my work as a freelancer. It helped me really expand my skill set from having been in-house for the 10 years prior. So it exposed me to different industries. It taught me a nimbleness that you don't have when you're in-house. And I've learned, these platforms or these types of strategies, and it's great. But the problem with freelance work is I never get to see it play out. I put this great campaign together and then I leave, and I don't get to be part of the team that executes or part of the teams that celebrates the results. And I've really missed that for these 10 years of freelance. So I'm looking to bring that foundational experience I have in-house as a regular employee, plus all of the new skills I've learned as a freelancer, back in-house, where I can be part of a team and really build excitement and feel the excitement from the results that we achieve together.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. A little smoother than that, but you get the idea.
And I want to point something out, especially in this instance that Susan did. She focused on the professional, the professional outcomes, or the professional like pluses of moving into
not the negatives.
Not the negatives,
of being a freelancer.
Because oftentimes you might lead with, well, I'm so sick of like
I hate prospecting, and then clients can be so difficult, and then it's feast or famine. I can never say no.
Yeah. That's reserve that for your allies. Those are the people you can complain to, but you don't want to do that in this sense. You want to keep it as positive, light, moving forward. I'm in control. I am, writing this ship because this is the next place I want to go, and this is what I want to do.
Okay.
Thanks.
Let's do one or two more questions. So Laura asks, how to prevent feeling discouraged in this tough job market?
Put the right people around you. That's number one. This is not easy. And this goes for all of you that are navigating this. Doing it alone, doing it by yourself can feel really isolating. It can feel overwhelming. You can go down the rabbit hole of all the things you're not enough of, and none of it's true. And none of it's true. That's what we talked about earlier about feeding the beast, right? We can compile and really see the challenges. Now, that's not to say that there isn't a 2% truth that's happening. There's a 2% truth that this is hard. This is difficult. It is challenging. There are some realities that are, this might take you longer than you really anticipated or want. And that's okay to allow yourself to be a realist about what's happening. But at the same time, you have to set a boundary with yourself about how much time and energy you're going to spend in the negative, because movement, forward momentum is what's going to net you the next possibility, the next opportunity. And if we get stuck in the overwhelming feelings, which we're human, and we get stuck in the overwhelming feelings, you are wasting a lot of valuable time. So a couple things are very important when you are in the job seeking process. Taking care of yourself is not, a luxury. And what I mean by taking care of yourself is not just like, oh, I'm going to go and, get a pedicure today or something like that. It's, are you moving your body? Just 20 minutes of movement really can help siphon off the heaviness, and you're going to get the most bang for your buck. And that could be walking to your mailbox and back, taking your dog for a loop around the neighborhood when you're having those heavy feelings, when you're feeling like I'm going down that rabbit hole. That's going to siphon off the heaviness. And, in our course, I actually do a whole thing on job seeking burnout, specifically because it translates everywhere. It translates for when you return to work too. Many of you probably opted out from the workplace because you were in burnout in some way, shape, or form, and you couldn't do it all. And so you did have to take a break. And so there is real science behind this. This is not foo-foo. Self-care is not something that, I take lightly. Everything that we teach or we explain to our students is all based in science. So taking care of yourself in this process is going to give the best version of yourself for that opportunity that might show up when you least expect it. So building in those things that are going to keep you healthy and grounded, and it's talking to the right people, it's setting boundaries with those people, those negative voices that might be around you, and some of them you might be married to. And we've heard that. There's a lot of economic pressure of I need you to get back, or and that's okay, but it's okay to set boundaries in those instances too, and say, listen, I feel it too. I understand where you're coming from. We're both on the same page with that. However, it doesn't help me or serve me to feel like you're not my partner in this, or you're not my teammate in this. And so here is what you can do to support and help me. And it might be take the kids out and, so that I can spend time to do this. Or it might be think about who the connectors are in your network. Who
That you can connect with me.
you could connect me with, so it's giving that person that oftentimes is feeling their own pressure, and they are
Kelley does a whole 2 weeks, 2 separate lessons on this. I would just add that community helps.
Yeah.
Not doing this alone.
Yeah.
And that is why most students join us.
Yeah.
Most students who join us have been doing this on their own. They didn't just wake up today and say, gee, I think I want to go back to work. Most of them have been trying.
Yeah.
Maybe they haven't been able to get any interviews. Maybe they've been able to get interviews and never land a job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they haven't even tried, but most of them have been thinking about it for a while. And so by joining our program, and I'm just going to make the plug, there is a built-in community. You are in a group of other women who are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And that is a great way
Absolutely.
to avoid the burnout, because you hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
And you're motivated to have those 2 live calls a week at minimum with your group.
Yeah.
And with us to get the work done and push you forward.
And it puts structure around it. That's the other thing that is really helpful, is to put structure, meaningful structure around this really challenging thing that you're doing in your life. And so that is what the course does. It accelerates you in those 10 weeks with a lot of structure. And when Susan and I built this program, we actually designed it originally for you to do it on your own, for you to watch the videos and then go ahead and do all the downloadables that we give you and everything, and to do this on your own time and really flexible. We thought, and then the pilot came back to us and said, we need a community. We need each other. We need to be talking to each other. And we've had students who have helped land each other land jobs.
Yep.
So, if our course is not for you, go find a community, go find a group, pull some like-minded people, maybe in your own area, together, and say, listen, let's try to be accountability partners in this, because doing it alone is why we built Prepare to Launch You. We knew ourselves that we could have spent years and years and years doing this meaningful work that we're now doing in the world if we hadn't been stuck in that sort of hamster wheel of trying to do it by ourselves. Okay.
Laura, you should come to the info session.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Well, we have more questions if you have more time, or we can wrap
I
up.
think we go for about maybe 8 more minutes, because we have a big
Okay.
webinar we're doing for Samsung.
Yeah, we
today.
have a corporate presentation this afternoon. So, okay. How to talk about a career break from mental illness, how to approach the transition, like she says, into a career pivot. And this is from Bhageshri.
Okay. So we have a video just on, I think it might be a whole webinar,
Was it
just
through the
on
project?
tackling tricky career
Did you
breaks.
find that, Meg?
Yeah,
And
I'll
that
find it.
in particular, it was motivated, the whole design of that webinar was motivated by a student who had to take a career break for her own mental illness. So generally speaking, you will talk about taking a break to manage a family member's health issues, how you became a health advocate, how you navigated the insurance, whatever else you did. But you're not going to say it's you. Because I'll be honest with you, Bhageshri, if you are, no one's going to hire you. I mean, there are some evolved employers, maybe a handful in the world, but most people aren't going to have the charity to say, you know what, this person's great, they've overcome their illness. And this is the true of whether it's a mental illness or cancer or whatever. People just
A horrific
don't,
divorce.
yeah,
might
they
be
just,
another one.
they just don't have it. They have so many options. They're not going to take the person who might get sick again, or the person who might struggle post-divorce.
Right.
You know, half of our students are divorcees, or probably 40%. These are, and a lot of them are breast cancer survivors. We have a lot of, but we just don't talk about that.
Right.
So Bhageshri, you're going to want to watch that webinar, because I really talk through specifically how to write it and how to talk about it.
Yep.
And this is something you have to absolutely practice, because it doesn't come naturally.
And also, it's not anybody's business, that part of your life. You again, you share that with the people who are your support system. That is not their business. And you get to determine who gets to hear that version of the story and who doesn't. And this would be an instance where that version of the story doesn't get shared with this person. They haven't earned the right. They don't know the depths of who you are as a person.
So it's basically, you took 2 years off to navigate a family health crisis, and now you're on the other side of it. And during that time, you developed some skills doing X, Y, or Z, if you developed anything, and you're excited to come back.
But what I do want you to talk to her about is, so she's made it through, she's interviewed, she's landed the job, and now she's negotiating. And, sometimes you can negotiate without having to explain that it's a mental illness or, a mental health.
Well,
issue.
you're talking
Yes,
about
yes,
my
yes,
private
yes,
client.
yes.
So I have a private client who has bipolar. She's a very senior level tech person, and she was nervous. She had left one big tech company, not of her own problem. It wasn't her, she didn't cause it, it was a layoff. But she had a really good relationship with her prior boss, who understood that she was bipolar. And in her case, it's a fairly predictable arc. So about once every 4 to 5 weeks, roughly once a month, she just isn't physically well because of her bipolar to go to the work. She can still work. So what we designed was, when she sat down to negotiate the offer after she was offered this job at another big tech company. And so she'd been through like 6 interviews and 2 assessments. These big companies are, really vetting. So we knew they must love her, because they offered only her the job. She just sat with her manager, and she's just said, as she was negotiating, so she asked for more money. And then she said, everything about the offer is great. We need to get a little closer to this number. And then there's one other accommodation I'd be looking for. I have an illness that renders me, it's on somewhat of a cycle, and it renders me physically weak for about a week a month. And so what I've done with my prior employees is, for that week, I work fully remotely. And I just wanted to make sure you're comfortable with that. I can certainly let you talk to some of my former coworkers. I'll get the work done, but it just won't be in person during that week. And sometimes it's longer stretches, but that's the way it works. And I want to make sure you're comfortable with that. So she's not really asking for anything. She's more telling her,
Right.
and then just making sure she's comfortable with it. So this can be true also for people who have really terrible periods. Some people are literally physically can't get off the couch. So instead of saying, you'll notice that way when I instructed Deb, she didn't say, I'm bipolar, and once a month I'm in the depressive point and I can't go do anything. That's none of their business. She said, I have an illness. That's it. Okay. And it worked really well. She's got the job. She's doing really well.
Hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Thanks, Bhageshri. Anybody else?
Okay. Yeah, and I linked that tackling tricky career gaps in the chat.
Good. Thanks.
Well, you just kind of answered that question, so I'm going to kind of merge the two. Shamala says she has 2 questions combined: how to get over the self-doubt and lack of confidence, and then how to show relevance in terms of real-world projects after a long career break.
You take the first half,
Yeah.
I'll take the second.
Okay, so confidence comes from doing. If you are hiding in any way, if you are not putting yourself out there, or if you are not connecting with people, if you're not having conversations, you are doing yourself no growth in that area. Connecting with people, having conversations, putting yourself out there, and then taking really good care of yourself on the back end. Every conversation, and just saying to yourself, not every conversation has to be perfect. I don't have to get this all right. I am learning. Changing that narrative in your brain, and you have about 5 seconds when you start to have one of those negative thoughts, where that self-doubt is creeping in and it's telling you, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you just said that way. And they didn't even, you looked foolish, or that was a stupid question to ask, whatever it might be. You have to stop yourself immediately and have a mantra in place. And it could go something like this. That is an old way of thinking. I am learning, and that's okay. And I'm getting better, and that's okay. So just having something that you say to yourself immediately, what that does is it actually builds the neural pathways in your brain for positivity. And every single time you do that, it's like a muscle. It's like going to the gym. Every single time that negative thought comes up, you have 5 seconds, you hit it with that mantra, you are building those neural pathways. And then eventually what starts to happen is your brain defaults to that positive way of thinking. The positive thinking is going to give you that feeling of, what's the next possibility? What's the next thing that's going to come up? What's the next opportunity for me? And that's what we want to do. We are fight or flight beings. Our bodies are hardwired for negativity because it was a form of protection when a lion was chasing us, or, a tiger was chasing us. We need to take the time when those negative thoughts come in to say, you know what, this is challenging, but I'm doing it anyway, because that's what I'm doing right now. And pushing yourself to do that. Oftentimes, that perfectionist mindset is something that we got rewarded for a very long time. And it's maybe how you made it through the ranks. It's maybe how it serves you really well in the work that you're doing. If you have a job where precision is extremely important, then that bleeds off into the other places in your life. You have to start to set the boundary with yourself that says, I don't have to be perfect here. I don't have to get this all right. I'm learning, I'm getting better at this. And our students, like what we've seen with them, is that grows through the process of the course, but even more so when they get out there and they're actively job seeking. I mean, we've had students that have been shot down a number of times, and they were perfectionists when they came to us to begin with, but they keep at it and they do a really good job at staying with something that's hard and difficult and not hiding or, judging themselves and saying, you know what, this feels like I'm just not good enough. Like I'm just not good enough for this. And I'm just not going to do it at all. So it's your job to set boundaries with yourself. But that little hack that you can use in these beginning stages is just to set up that mantra for yourself. I am learning now, or, it's okay to feel that way, but I'm somebody who learns, or I'm somebody who wants to grow through this process. Okay.
As far as relevance goes, you have to believe you're relevant before anyone else will. So a lot of that comes from doing that early work in our program, or doing it on your own to really be clear on what your strengths are, what your values are, what your experience is, what your expertise is, what your priorities are, and all of that. But the other piece of it is giving yourself a little bit of grace, because right now things are changing so quickly that even the internal employee who's been there for 10 years is worried about relevance because things are changing. And because of the rapid pace of change, it doesn't matter for those of you, particularly who've had a longer break, whether your break was 2 years or 10, things are changing so quickly that everyone in the organization is learning. Mm-hmm. That said, if you know that the particular role you seek or the company where you want to work uses a platform that you are completely unfamiliar with, and maybe it's one of the preferred skill sets that they talk about in your networking or maybe on their job descriptions, take some time to get familiar with it. You don't have to go in as an expert. You should never expect to go in as an expert, because every company is going to train you in their own modalities and their own ways. But doing a little bit of homework to prepare yourself. But relevance is becoming a much harder thing for everyone to chase because of the rapid pace of change. So I'd probably let yourself off the hook a little bit on that. And focus more on building that inner confidence that Kelley talked about.
We can't tell you how many times students have come back to our graduate calls.
Right after they start their new
They
job.
start their new job and they're like, no one knows what they're doing in the workplace right now. You know, everybody's questioning themselves. Everybody is not really clear about what they're doing.
And 80% of every hire, and I've been doing this for a really long time, is down to, do I want to see this person in my office or on the other side of the Zoom screen? Assuming you meet the basic credentials, the majority of the hiring decision is fit. And who do people want to hire? They want people who are confident, meaning they're not going to ask me a gazillion questions. They're going to come in here and like figure stuff out. People are going to show up. People who are, you know, optimistic and positive. People who will roll up their sleeves to do different stuff or learn new things. These are all soft qualities. There's tons of data out there showing that the soft skills will eclipse the hard skills as soon as 2030, it may be even sooner.
Yeah. Adaptability is a big one too. So showing that you can try new things in your back to work journey, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we do need to wrap up. But thank you all for joining us live today, and we'd love to stay in touch. We love our audience. If the Career Relaunch course interests you, we welcome you to join our upcoming info sessions. They're going to be Thursday, August 28th, or Friday, September 5th, both at noon Eastern Time. If you would like to stay connected to us, we recommend just send us an email. I dropped our email in the chat, the info@preparetolaunchu.com. You can sign up for our email updates. We're also very active on LinkedIn, so please follow us there. And we wish you all the best in your career journeys. We know this is a particularly challenging time, and mindset and community really matter. So we wish you all the good luck, and please stay in our community here at Prepare to Launch You.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Bye,
Megan.
everyone. Take care. Thanks, Meg.